The first time my friend Boton and I met, we had a pretty eclectic conversation. We discussed everything from Dostoevsky to Hungarian politics, and even threw in a little bit of medieval Venetian history for good measure. But out of everything we talked about, the one thing that really stuck out and resonated with me was Boton's reference to opera, specifically the fact that he had indeed intended operas. Now, to a naive New Worlder like myself, the idea of opera just reeked of something distant, ancient, almost a mythical relic of a bygone era. So, naturally, I decided I had to go see one. I logged onto the Royal Opera House website, purchased a ticket, and attended my first performance. Immediately, I fell in love. The reason why? Opera is based as Now, this video is not a defense of every single production of opera out there. Like most art nowadays, many opera houses have come to be contaminated by the creeping tendrils of postmodernity, with a perceived need to showcase woke credentials. However, what this video will show is why opera as an art form, in its most unadulterated essence, is incredibly based, and as such, why there's so much that we can learn from it. Before getting to those final takeaways, however, we'll first explore what makes opera unique and worthwhile in the first place. So without further ado, let's dive in. Now, the first aspect of opera that makes it so incredibly based is the fact that opera is completely unafraid to be itself. And now, to give some background to this, we live in an age that values function over form and the practical over the impractical. But opera spits completely in the face of practicality. It is unashamed about being impractical. And what I mean by this is a couple things. So first of all, you're singing in languages that the vast majority of the audience does not understand. Secondly, you are telling stories that are seemingly completely unrelated to our everyday lives. And thirdly, the sheer scale of the production is incredible. I mean, you have the costuming, you have the giant, elaborate, elegant set pieces, and then lastly, the entire freaking orchestra that is playing the music. Not to mention, by the way, the cost that's involved with putting all of this together. What makes opera special is the fact that it embraces its impracticality. It realizes that there's something important and virtuous about being impractical, and it embraces that. It doesn't bend over backwards trying to dilute itself by being more commercial so that you accept it. It simply is what it is, and it's unabashedly itself. The second thing that makes opera so based is the fact that it's incredibly virtuosic. Now, we live in an age of fakes, where it's incredibly easy for mediocre people to pass as being talented. And this plays out in a lot of different ways, whether it's a Photoshop bodybuilder or fake followers on social media, or even myself making this video. I mean, this could be my first take doing the shot, or it could be my 100th, but you might never know because I can hide it in the edit. So in an age of fakes, opera really stands out from the crowd, and it reminds us of the virtue of real skill and excellence. Now, in order to make it in the operatic world, it requires years of hard work and dedication. And every single person that you see, from the soprano on stage to the set manager who builds the actual set pieces, to every single member of the orchestra, these people have dedicated their entire lives to being professional, to being the best that they can be, to excelling at what they do. And not only that, but with opera you also have the added element of being a live performance. I mean, this isn't film where you can have very talented actors, but they can mess up and retake 100 times until they get a line right. Or even, concerts nowadays with performers who really just owe their existence to the plastic surgery of auto-tune, and their concert is them basically playing to tracks in the background. It's not any of that. With opera, you could be the best soprano in the world, but if you flub a note on stage, everyone will notice. And so the value of opera and its virtuosity comes in the fact that it reminds us of the priceless value of real talent, of real skill, of real expertise. And for that reason, it does us all good. The third and final thing that makes opera so based is the fact that it does not insult our intelligence. It's not ransacked by the bigotry of low expectations. What I mean by this, for example, is that opera doesn't think that because it's sung in a foreign language that we're incapable of appreciating it or understanding the plot. Opera doesn't think that because of our relative unfamiliarity with classical music, leitmotifs, or a different singing style, that it needs to reduce and degrade itself to being catchy and kitsch musical theater. No. On the contrary, opera believes that I am capable, that you are capable, and that everyone is capable of appreciating and understanding it because it holds us to high standards of human excellence. These characteristics at the heart of opera can lead to several big takeaways for us. As I mentioned earlier, I believe that opera stands to teach us a ton, and what I'm covering in this video doesn't even explore the lessons of individual operas themselves, but simply the lessons learned from the concept of opera as a whole. The first thing opera teaches us is that the meaningful can't be reduced down to the practical. We realize with opera that, contrary to popular belief, it's often the impracticality of something that makes it beautiful, meaningful, and worth pursuing. By experiencing this in person, we develop our ability to see past the veil of practicality which misguides our pursuits, and better attune ourselves to what is actually worthwhile in our lives. Secondly, opera teaches us that hard work pays off. It reminds us that true talent is worth 1,000,000 times more than any impersonation of it. Not only do the virtuosic singers and musicians in an opera remind us of the benefits reaped from a life dedicated to the pursuit of excellence, but in our own quest to better appreciate opera, we also learn by experiencing this firsthand. Whether it's by studying to learn the meaning of the original language, or to simply understand the musical nuance and complexities of the operatic genre, the more we work to understand opera, the more value we derive from it. It takes effort to truly appreciate great art, but the investment is worth it. Opera serves as a great reminder that nothing worth having in life comes easy. Lastly, opera thinks more highly of us than we think of ourselves, and it rightly holds us to this higher standard. Opera doesn't waste time sinking down to an uncultivated everyday level, nor does it make concessions to our age and temperament. Opera simply knows that it has inherited a legacy, and it has a duty to pass that legacy on. Opera doesn't ask itself whether its repertoire is relevant to our immediate tastes or interests. Rather, it assumes that since what it has to impart is unquestionably valuable, it can only benefit us to receive it. Importantly, opera also recognizes that we cannot understand that benefit prior to receiving it. Opera is there for us, regardless of whether we want it or not. In its purest form, opera is incredibly based, unapologetically itself, and never compromising or lowering its standard to accommodate for our lower tastes. In the end, opera doesn't need us. Rather, we need opera. And only those who fully embrace it are able to understand and appreciate everything that it has to offer.